We're back in Washington, D.C. for Starrcade, December 19th, 1999. Attendance is pretty poor tonight with a reported 8,500 inside the MCI Centre, so WCW's lost nearly half of their live event attendees in comparison to Starrcade 98 in the same arena. 145,000 have bought Starrcade 99 on pay-per-view, while 460,000 bought Starrcade 98, so the numbers are not good, and it does reflect the terrible year WCW had in 99. Still, every match on this card has had some sort of build-up as Vince Russo continues his efforts to steer WCW in the right direction. Just a quick side note before we begin, I am not a fan of the entrance setup and the general look of this Starrcade event. We're missing those ancient Greek pillars and the big arch from previous Starrcade shows, and instead we've got something that looks pretty generic. Sounds like a nitpick, I know, but when you've got Scott Hudson calling this event the granddaddy of them all, then you do expect a bit more in regards to the general presentation. Yeah, Scott Hudson's calling this show alongside Tony Schiavone and Bobby Heenan. Let's get started then. Our opening match features the Mamalukes versus Disco Inferno and Lash LeRoux. So the Mamalukes have been trying to get their hands on Disco and Lash for a very long time, all because Disco owed the family some money. Every week, Big Vito and Johnny the Bull have failed in their mission, but tonight might be the night that Disco swims with the fishes. If Johnny and Vito fail, then Tony Marinara is going to be an angry little boy. Disco dances his way to the ring while Lash LeRoux shows off his 6 sideburns. He must be very proud of those. The family then make their entrance, and our match begins with Vito teaching Lash LeRoux a lesson in respect. The commentators say Vito and Johnny are not pro wrestlers, they're goons for hire, but you could have fooled me with this vertical suplex from Big Vito. Vito then shows off some sick karate skills he was taught by Sensei Blackman before tagging out. Johnny's nowhere near as successful inside the ropes against Lash LeRoux. Disco gets tagged in and we see an inverted atomic drop followed by a clothesline, and Johnny gets wrecked in the corner while young Tony nearly gets kicked in the face too. From here, the Mamalukes take control with standard heel tag team shenanigans. The boys get focused while the referee's back's turned, and we then see some tag team action from the Mamalukes. Starrcade gets its first chinlock when Johnny brings the pain to Disco Inferno. The Mamalukes make a wish and Disco gets his nutsack ripped in half. We see a great looking double hip toss slam from Big Vito and Johnny the Bull. And yeah, good stuff here from the Mamalukes. These guys have been pretty impressive in their WCW tag team debut match. Vito misses a top rope splash, the Raging Cajun tags in, Lash fires up on both Mamalukes, and when things get a bit dicey, Disco comes in to lend a hand. When the ring clears out, Johnny's able to put Lash down with a gorilla press slam. He then slips when going to the top rope and he misses a leg drop. Disco then pulls off an uncharacteristic frog splash that didn't look terrible, but Vito breaks the cover with a flying elbow. I don't know who the legal man is anymore. The match ends when Disco hits his own partner with a chartbuster. He thought it was Big Vito, which is kind of funny seeing as, Vito's bald and Lash has an untamed mop on his head. But Lash also takes an impaler DDT from Vito and the Mamalukes win via pinfall. After the bell, the family beat Disco up. He gets ether shoved in his face before getting put in a body bag. The Inferno's finally been caught and his days of running away from his debts are now over. He gets carried up the ramp, he gets put in Tony's car, and he gets taken away from the arena as Starrcade continues on. Scott Hall's been stripped of the US title due to injury, and Chris Benoit's been awarded the championship. Chris comes to the ring, he says he came here to fight, so as far as Benoit sees it, the championship is actually vacated, and he still wants to compete tonight in a ladder match. Chris issues an open challenge for the title, and we'll find out who answers that challenge in our semi-main event. Next, it's the Evan Karagias vs Madusa Cruiserweight title match. Evan done the dirty on Madusa, and he's now with Nitro Girl Spice. What a dirty, dirty young man. Madusa takes her sweet time performing a diving attack from the apron. Evan then takes a bump at the ring steps. Inside the ring, Madusa dares Evan to hit her, and it only takes a slap to the face for Evan to punch Madusa in the jaw. After a power slam, Evan goes for a top rope lionsault, but he misses by a mile. Madusa performs a middle rope dropkick. Evan fires back with a sit-down powerbomb. Madusa then tries to powerbomb Karagias, and Evan narrowly escapes disaster by tucking his chin in at the very last moment. Karagias performs a dive to the outside. He throws Madusa back inside the ropes. Spice wants to give her boyfriend a kiss, and there it is. Swerve, bro. Spice pulls off the most awkward low blow in the history of pro wrestling, and Madusa becomes Cruiserweight champion after a German suplex. A pretty historic moment for sure. Madusa is the first woman in WCW to hold a championship that was traditionally held by men only. It's a shame really that the match was an absolute travesty, and Madusa in particular was terrible throughout most of the bout. The first bad match we've had at Starrcade 99. Backstage, Norman Smiley says he's worried about facing Meng tonight, but he's not scared. He then almost has a heart attack when a producer walks by, so I think our main man might be just a bit on edge. As a matter of fact, Mean Gene confirms that Norman just soiled his pants, so that's not good. Screaming Norman brings a dumpster to the ring filled with all sorts of goodies. We of course have the usual surge container for some sweet product placement, but clearly the Minger isn't a fan of carbonated sugar drinks. Our hardcore title match begins with Norman getting bowled over with his very own dumpster. He then takes a few trash can shots as the two immediately head to the backstage area. The Minger gets hit with a steel chair as Norman tries to build some offense, but he screams when Meng no-sells a trash can shot. Poor Norman. Meng goes on offense, and Smiley finds himself in trouble as the two end up in the catering area. It seems there's nothing the champ can do to hurt the challenger, and Smiley finds himself in trouble again after going through a table. Thankfully, he finds a fire extinguisher and he tries to blind his opponent, but this doesn't work, and Norman decides to jump back into the catering area. What a guy. At this very moment, Meng gets attacked by complete tit brand Knobs and Fit Finlay. Knobs has completed his training, it would seem, and now he thinks he's some sort of badass. He's changed his look, but he still looks like a tit. And even though Meng tries his best to fight these two off, he unfortunately goes down after Fit hits him with a lead pipe. Norman has no idea what happened, but he notices that Meng's been hurt, so the champ pins his opponent and he runs off with a pinfall victory. Fantastic. Nick Patrick then checks on Meng, but this was a mistake, because our match loser wakes up and Nasty Nick gets put in the Tongan death grip. David Flair, the absolute stud that he is, receives another present backstage. It's maybe the greatest present of all, a gold crowbar. He could have done with a new shirt, seeing as he's repping Halloween Havoc right here instead of, Starrcade. Oklahoma's then seen getting prepared with Steve Williams, but seconds later he gets abducted by the Misfits. Vampiro's facing Dr. Death a bit later on, and it looks like Oklahoma won't be able to interfere. Hacksaw Jim Duggan was originally scheduled to team up with two partners to face the Revolution tonight, but now he's getting three partners. Shane Douglas is going to compete tonight, though he's still got a bad arm and he's still going to spend his time at the commentary table. If the Revolution win tonight, then Duggan has to denounce the USA. If Duggan's team wins, then the Revolution are going to become janitors for 30 days. Hacksaw announces his partners, and it's the Varsity Club. The Varsity Club with Leah Meow, who was better known as Kimona in ECW. A good little throwback here for old school WCW fans for sure, and this also means that Kevin Sullivan is still too legit to quit. Rick Steiner and Mike Rotundo's here too, and I don't really know about this. The Varsity Club weren't very nice people, and I think I can smell another swerve coming up, Rose. My swervy senses are tingling. Duggan and the boys make easy work of Perry Saturn. Saturn gets knocked around in the opposing corner before Dean Malenko comes in. Dino Machino doesn't have much luck either, and it takes both he and Saturn to do a little teamwork to put Hacksaw down. Saturn tags back in, he pulls off a springboard dropkick, he then misses a moonsault, and Jim has the perfect chance to tag out, but he doesn't do it. As a matter of fact, not a single member of the Varsity Club gets legally tagged in. The boys are forced into the ring when Duggan finds himself in a bad spot and the Revolution get cleaned out. The crowd pops for Kevin Sullivan's Tree of Woe knee attack while Shane Douglas screams, "This stinks," into the headset. It's here when the Varsity Club turn on Duggan though, as expected. Hacksaw takes a clothesline to the back of the head from Mike Rotundo and the club launch an attack. It all ends with Duggan taking a low blow from Kevin Sullivan, and this allows Shane Douglas to slide into the ring and get a pinfall victory. The franchise rubs it in. He reminds Hacksaw that tomorrow night on Nitro he must denounce the United States. And yep, another pretty bad match here at Starrcade 99. The initial pop for the Varsity Club was pretty good, and it showed us that WCW still had a lot of their older fan base in attendance, but still, the match wasn't good. If Vampiro can beat Steve Williams in our next match, he'll get 5 minutes all alone with Oklahoma, and the Misfits have put Oklahoma in a shark cage to make sure he lives up to his word. So Dr. Death makes his Starrcade return after last competing at the event in 1992, and the match begins with Vampiro jumping on him after diving from the shark cage. Williams tries his best to fight back on the outside, but when the action gets in the ring, he takes a few kicks in the corner. Oklahoma's calling the action from his cage, and even if his shtick was funny, it's already seriously played out. Vampiro and Williams chop each other. Dr. Death then performs a few of his signature tackles. Oklahoma gets a bit worried when Vampiro replies with a back suplex, but Williams stops a top rope attack with a huge Northern Light suplex from upstairs, the move of the match so far. Dr. Death takes the Misfits out, making the band look like a bunch of jabronis. This allows Vampiro to hit his spinning front kick, but Williams counters a spinning wheel kick with a back suplex. Honestly, I was just starting to get into this one and I was enjoying seeing the old Steve Williams back for just a moment, but then he gets himself DQ'd when he won't stop attacking Vampy Balls and he pushes the referee. So that's it, Vampiro's got 5 minutes all alone with Oklahoma to do whatever he pleases. And this would end up being Steve Williams' final match in WCW before returning to Japan. Doug Dillinger's band of merry men come out to remove Dr. Death from the ring. Oklahoma's now understandably shitting himself. The crowd are chanting boring even though this was supposed to be the payoff for the feud, and what's maybe worse is the fact that Oklahoma actually beats Vampiro up a little when he gets released from the cage. Vampiro takes a kick to the chest, followed by a DDT. Oklahoma thinks he's done a fantastic job, but he ends up taking a chop, and that's when the Misfits get involved. Vampiro performs a Uranagi before he and the Misfits have fun at Oklahoma's expense. And yeah, you're basically seeing someone cosplay as Jim Ross getting beat up by 5 guys in a WCW ring. After the beatdown, for some reason, Vampiro pins Oklahoma, and all this just ruins what could have been a good match between Williams and Vampiro. Creative Control and Curt Hennig take on Harlem Heat and Midnight next, and both teams are having some issues. The powers that be don't seem all that interested in this match as Russo says something big's going to happen later on, and he more or less forgot the 6-man tag was going to take place. And as for Harlem Heat, Stevie Ray's fed up with Midnight causing friction between the brothers. As a matter of fact, Stevie tells Booker he won't have his back in this upcoming match, and Stevie does not come down to the ring alongside Booker. This means we've got a 3-on-2 match right here, and the winners of this one become the #1 contenders for the tag team belts. I assume that means Creative Control would get the opportunity even if Hennig wins the match for his team. And even though Booker and Midnight put up a good fight, it didn't take long for the numbers game to come into play. Keep in mind too that Shane was standing on the outside. The babyfaces were already at a severe disadvantage and Shane still interfered. In the end, Stevie Ray did come out, but Booker told him to get lost. Stevie decides to hang around though, and he even gets on the apron for a brief moment, but he then decides to argue with Midnight on the outside, and this allows Kurt to use those brass knucks that don't look like brass knucks, but we'll call them brass knucks anyway. Booker gets pinned, Harlem Heat won't be challenging for the tag team belts, and so far the best match on this card's been the opener. Everything else has been booked like a Nitro match with a slightly extended runtime. Next, it's the bunkhouse brawl between Dustin Rhodes and Jeff Jarrett. This one's been building up for a while on Nitro, and Dustin says before the match that Double J's gonna bite the dust after Jarrett talked bad about Dustin's dad. Jarrett launches an early attack in the backstage area. The two make their way to the main arena, and we see Double J's wearing chops that he didn't bother buckling up. That right there is hardcore, ladies and gents, or sorry, that's bunkhousery, I don't know. Jarrett uses his little wheelbarrow to take Rhodes for a short ride, though Jarrett's ride was even shorter. And back in the ring, Dustin uses a big stick to do some damage. A bull rope then comes into play as Double J gets tied up and whacked over the head with a cowbell. This continues over at the commentary table, and the bell makes a satisfying clunk as it bounces off Jarrett's head. The two get back in the ring where we see Dustin's paid his monthly subscription to HBK's Sniff delivery service, and Jarrett gets blinded by the white powder. Rhodes takes his belt off, and not only does he hit Double J, he also hits the referee. He then brings Billy Silverman to the corner where the referee gets taped to the ring ropes before getting a piece of tape stuck over his mouth. And do remember that a bunkhouse brawl can only end via pinfall or submission. We have no one to call for the bell. Curt Hennig ends up coming out to save the referee. The commentators speculate that Curt must have been sent out by the powers that be as Double J breaks a stick over Dustin's back. The audience boos as Jarrett applies a bunkhouse sleeper hold. Tough crowd tonight at Starrcade. The hold stays in for way too long, and they don't seem too bothered when Dustin breaks free. Jarrett gets set up for Shattered Dreams, and Dustin deals with Hennig before kicking Double J in the nutsack.
That's my purse! I don't know you!
Hennig suffers the same fate as his guitar swinging friend, but this allows Double J to recover a little. Rhodes and Jarrett begin making their way up the entranceway, and Dustin shows off his sick karate skills while holding on to an entranceway truss, and no, Dustin was not trained in the Motherfuck Dojo, can you tell? Our match ends when Hennig tries to help out Jeff once again, and this allows Jarrett to climb up a conveniently placed ladder. Dustin gets a guitar broken over his head, and Jarrett wins via pinfall. I thought this was okay. It was a decent brawl, and the only nitpick I have really is the long sleeper hold towards the end of the match.
Look at that bear. Oh.
Now that your daddy's gone, you walk around here thinking you are someone. But David Flair, you could have had it all, but the unfortunate truth is you suck big balls.
Right, David Flair versus Diamond Dallas Page. It was Flair Jr. who put Page on the bench after a crowbar attack, so Dallas won some revenge. The crowbar's getting put on a pole, bro. How original. And if you can retrieve said crowbar, you can use it against your opponent, though you still gotta win via pinfall or submission. Page calls himself the king of bada bing, bada boom, bada bang, though he doesn't look like it when David bada bangs him with his gold crowbar before the opening bell. Good man. David thinks he's won the match, but Charles Robinson tells Flair Jr. to get a life, kid, though David continues to celebrate while Page stays on the outside. Charles Robinson checks on Dallas and he decides DDP can't continue the match, so he tells Dave Penzer to make the announcement, but Dallas is having none of it. Page shoves Penzer away and he tries to get back in the ring while David's brain continues to melt. Page gets inside the ropes. It's time for David to fire up and show us all what he can do. And okay, he delivers a few knee strikes and Page tries to steal the win with a quick roll up. David breaks free and he pulls off this glorious double axe handle. Well done, David. Page fights from the canvas and he tries to get back in the match. He knows David isn't much of an athlete, so he decides to slam himself in the middle of the ring. But young Flair puts me in my place when he pulls off a nice sunset flip followed by a DDT. I mean, he's no Shawn Michaels, but just those two moves alone show us a lot of improvement. Flair chokes his opponent out, he celebrates immediately afterwards. Dallas takes exception to this, but Flair comes back with a clothesline. Even the commentators are surprised by David's in-ring work. Page answers with a clothesline of his own, but Flair's able to go for the crowbar. Page follows, but he ends up taking a low blow. And after a body slam, young Flair locks in the figure 4. Like father, like son. If your son sucked. DDP breaks the hold, but David's still able to grab the crowbar. This is David's big moment, folks. Here it comes. Diamond cutter. DDP wins via pinfall, but a moral victory for David here. It was short, it wasn't spectacular, but it was still David's best match to date. DDP sets Flair up on the top rope for a super cutter because why not? But then when Page goes to use the crowbar, that girl who submitted the Nitro tape 2 weeks ago runs down to protect Flair. She must have been the one who sent David the presents on Nitro and the gold crowbar tonight at Starrcade. This is Daphne, ladies and gents, and she saves Flair's life before Page goes to hit the referee with a diamond cutter. Fortunately, he thinks twice about it before heading back up the ramp, and Daphne looks happy that no serious harm came to David Flair. Lex Luger vs Sting's up next, and Sting decides to give Liz some extra strong mace for the match tonight. Liz throws her other bottle away because she won't be needing it. So, this match came about because Liz ran away from the total package. Sting's taking her in as his brand new manager, and the match begins with Lex going on offense right away. Sting can't even get his coat off. We go outside where Luger keeps the pressure on, the Stinger takes a few guardrail bumps, the two get in the ring where Lex pulls off a body slam and a few elbow drops, and it's Liz who proves to be the difference maker when she gets on the apron. Lex finds himself in between Sting and Liz and he takes a ton of strikes from both people, and then both Lex and Sting go down after a double clothesline. Liz gets in the ring and for some reason she checks on Lex before checking on Sting. Sting finds this a bit weird, but he also knew it was going to happen. Liz goes to use that extra strong mace on Sting, but that's not mace, folks, it's silly string. Right, look, it's a good spot and all, but this is completely out of nowhere. A month-long build-up that got way too much TV time than it should have. It's all been flushed down the toilet for the sake of a swerve, bro. Sting sends Elizabeth out of the ring, and just like that, the match continues on. Lex takes an inverted atomic drop, a clothesline, and a big top rope splash from the Stinger. We then see 2 Stinger splashes as Sting looks to end it. But then, when Sting goes for the deathlock, Liz gets in again holding the baseball bat. Sting tells Liz to drop the weapon, and the dumb son of a gun turns his back to put the deathlock on again. This allows Liz to just pick up the bat again, and she cracks Sting across the jaw. It's a gimmick bat for sure, but that still probably stung a bit. Yeah, stung. Yeah, fuck up. The ref calls for the bell, but Liz isn't done. She drops Sting's wrist inside a steel chair, and Luger lays the boots in. Lex takes the baseball bat, he delivers more shots to the hand and wrist, and yes, Sting may have saw the swerve coming, but his own stupidity cost him the match. He planned the silly string quite well, but he didn't think he'd get attacked from behind. The commentators say Sting's probably going to be gone for a while, and yes, that is true. The next time he competes inside the ring is at Uncensored next year. WCW couldn't afford stretchers for this show, so a bunch of randoms have to carry our hero out of the arena. Starrcade continues on, and this one wasn't good. Who is the master of the Powerbomb? Sid Vicious or Kevin Nash? Well, we all hope to find out in the next match, but the finish of this one's going to make you feel pretty ripped off. It's such a bad finish that I really don't know why everyone agreed to it, including the winner. The first one to pull off a powerbomb wins the match, and we get around 7 minutes of action before the match ends. Scott Hall isn't here, so Kev's all alone, for now. The match begins with that typical Kevin Nash corner offense that you all know and love. It ends with Sid taking a big back elbow, and I think this was supposed to be a double clothesline spot right here, and Nash had to improvise. It actually looked pretty good, and I only say it was improvised because Nash has never done it before. Sid then goes for the powerbomb, but he takes a low blow instead. On the outside, Nash tries a jackknife, but Sid breaks free. Sid's got a cut on his back, and I watched the start of the match back to see where this happened, but I'm at a complete loss. The only thing I can see is Sid hitting the ropes just before the bleeding starts, so if that was indeed how Sid got colour, then I'm impressed. Those must be some real dangerous ring ropes. Anyway, Sid wrecks Kev on the outside, and Nash takes a chair shot across the back. Inside the ring, Sid performs a leg drop followed by a body slam, and Sid signals that the end's near before accidentally sending his opponent into the referee. Sid then delivers a powerbomb. I mean, it wasn't pretty at all, but it's still a powerbomb, and the referee didn't see it. This leads to Jeff Jarrett coming down to break a guitar over Sid's head, and this, my friends, is the end of the match. Nash can't jackknife Sid, but it's fine, he still wins, because Nash just tells the referee that he powerbombed Sid, and Slick Johnson's like, yeah, okay, I believe you, and the referee calls for the bell. I'm not even joking. The referee took Kevin's word for it, and he awarded the match the Big Sexy. Again, it's cheap as hell after the long build-up this match had on TV. I was actually impressed that every match on this card had some storyline going into the pay-per-view, but you just feel like you've wasted all your time when you see the payoffs. When they say you can get the wrong type of heat, yeah, this is it. Backstage, Chris Benoit says that his US title open challenge is yet to be answered, but when Chris makes his way down to the ring, he soon finds out who his opponent is for this upcoming ladder match. Right, so who hasn't competed yet? Champagne Canyon, Bam Bam Bigelow, Kidman, Hoovy, Berlin, Psychosis. Well, how about we bring out Jeff Jarrett again, because that's who everyone wants to see, right? I mean, he had a decent enough match earlier on, but I really would have preferred someone else get this opportunity. Maybe someone who'll use that ladder to full effect, and hey, nothing against Double J, but I think this is a bad call. Maybe he'll prove me wrong though. He says he's already kicked one ass tonight, so he might as well do it again. And old Slapnuts get slapped hard before both men get in the ring. Chris performs a hook clothesline, a backbreaker, and a superplex before he retrieves the ladder. He puts it in the ring, but Double J performs a baseball slide. The US champ then gets dropped on the ladder, and this spot busts Benoit open pretty badly. But back in the ring, it's Chris who uses the ladder to good effect. Benoit goes up to grab his belt, but he ends up getting dropped on the top rope. Chris is now in a bad spot as Jarrett drops the ladder across his back, and the blood's now beginning to pool on the canvas. Still, Chris fights back, and both men are taking some hard bumps on the ladder. Jarrett gets a huge pop when he improvises a top rope slam while using the ladder to do extra damage. And yeah, I spoke too soon. This has been pretty good so far, and I stand fully corrected. Benoit tries to use the ladder to trap his opponent, but when he goes for the belt, Double J brings the ladder back down. The two then fight as they climb up each side of the ladder, but it's Jarrett who takes a rough fall here. No one can get the upper hand as Jarrett immediately fires back, but Chris isn't going to make it easy for the chosen one. Neither man can get the belt, yet they keep trying over and over again. Double J dropkicks the ladder when Chris gets his fingers on the US belt. The bump was pretty spectacular here, and Chris wants to return the favour by rolling under and dropkicking the ladder once again. Chris then has a chance to win it. He gets to the very top and all he has to do is unhook the belt, but instead he performs a diving headbutt and the crowd lose their collective mind. Chris climbs up once again, he grabs the belt, Benoit is still US champion, and Giovanni says this could very well be match of the year. You really can't complain. It's an impromptu match that was thrown together at the last minute, and even though I would have liked a few extra minutes from bell to bell, it was still good for what it was. So yeah, one good and one great match from Double J tonight. Fair play, lad. Bret Hart defeated Bill Goldberg in the WCW Mayhem World Title Tournament, but he got a lot of unwanted help in doing so. Bret would end up winning the World Championship in the tournament finals, and the very next night he promised to give Goldberg a title shot because of the way Bret beat him in the first round. The relationship between these two on TV has been a solid one. They both said they respect each other and they even won the tag team belts together before dropping them again a few days later. But it all boils down to Bret Hart not being able to say he's the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be without beating Goldberg fair and square inside the ring. Goldberg, meanwhile, says he's going to run through Bret tonight. The Hitman's next, and Goldberg will become champion again after losing the title at last year's Starrcade. So to make sure there's a winner tonight, this one is no disqualification. Someone's either going to get pinned or someone's going to give up. Bret says backstage that no matter what happens tonight, Goldberg's going to lose and he's going to prove to all the skeptics that the Hitman is the best. And after Bret makes his final entrance as world champion on pay-per-view, we then see Goldberg getting his security escort backstage. Goldberg walks down to the ring, he gets a great reaction as his pyro goes off. The two men are now inside the ropes and they shake hands before the match. The fans applaud, the bell rings. This is the final pay-per-view main event of the millennium as Bret Hart faces Bill Goldberg. We start with a strong collar and elbow tie-up and Bret gets brought to the corner. Goldberg gives a clean break and Goldberg shoves Bret to the mat following another lockup. Hart's going to need to utilise his technique to win this one, so he performs a headlock takeover and he begins wearing the challenger out on the mat. But Goldberg gets right back up and Billy Boy performs a hard shoulder block. This gets followed up with Goldberg's gorilla press power slam that always looks impressive, and this is playing out like a typical Goldberg match. Bret may be done for already. Instead of going for the kill like he usually would, Goldberg performs two short arm clotheslines. He then tries to play Bret at his own game with a knee bar submission, but this is where Bret shines as he tries to counter with a sharpshooter. Still, Goldberg uses his strength to force his way out, and Bret Hart rolls out of the ring. On the outside, Goldberg stays on the champion, and when Bret fights back, the referee takes a bump. Old Billy Silverman's had a pretty rough night tonight. The two then fight at the commentary table as Charles Robinson takes over, and when the match gets back in the ring, Bret takes a big boot. Robinson then takes a bump when Goldberg performs a single underhook suplex, but still Goldberg looks for a spear. Bret moves out of the way and Goldberg smacks the ring post, and we have now got another new referee. It's Johnny Boone. Bret then looks for the ring post figure 4, and this, according to Bret, was the first problem. When doing this move, your opponent has to hold onto your right foot, and Goldberg didn't do this. So Bret smacked his head on the floor, and even though it didn't look like much, you can still see Bret wince as he applies the move. When the move gets broken up, Bret stays on the floor with his hand covering his eyes, and it's very possible that Bret was already concussed after trying to pull off this move. The two get back in the ring where Bret tries to weaken Goldberg's leg even more, but he's wrecked. He's definitely not all there right now. He's going to continue on though with a snapmare takeover followed by a figure 4, and at least while applying this move, the Hitman can try to regain his faculties for a moment. When the two get up, Bret goes for a leg trip, but he gets punched in the head instead. The two then share strikes in the corner, and when Bret swings back, he ends up taking out the third referee. Goldberg sends Bret into the ropes, and then... According to Bret, the only instruction he gave Goldberg before coming to the ring was to not hurt him. Apparently, Bill called for the kick way too late and Hart had no idea what kind of kick Bill was going to perform. And seeing as Bret was already dazed from the figure 4 spot, he had no way to properly defend himself from Bill's attack. Now, there's always two sides to every story, and it's incredibly easy for all of us to back up Bret here, but all that matters is Bret's hurt. He knows he's in a lot of trouble, and he needs to get through these last few moments of the match as safely as possible. I went over what Bret said in his book in a video I put together years ago all about this match, so if you want to learn more, please check that one out. Bret gets put down with a spear, but there's no one to ring the bell. Goldberg has it won, and all he needs is a referee. Roddy Piper slowly makes his way down to the ring, and while Goldberg watches Piper, Bret pulls off a chop block. Bret then locks in a sharpshooter as Piper gets in the ring, and Piper tells the timekeeper to ring the bell. It's Montreal all over again, and it's truly a crappy finish to the match. But yeah, that's it over. Bret wins, and he's not happy about it. He follows Piper up the rampway, Roddy hands him the title, and Bret looks completely out of it as Starrcade fades to black. Bill Goldberg was screwed by Piper, and we assume the powers that be are behind this, but we will get all the answers tomorrow night on Nitro. The main event's a total downer, it really is, and it does leave a bad stain on WCW's last pay-per-view of 1999. Jeff Jarrett performed well tonight. I thought the opener was exactly what it needed to be. The show was also filled with your usual WCW nonsense that you'll watch once and never again. And then the kick just takes all the fun out of the show. I think even folks who don't like Bret Hart can understand just how crappy it is to have an event end like this. Bret isn't done, he still has a few weeks on TV and he still wrestles more matches. We're going to see those matches as I continue this series, so hopefully you join me as we say goodbye to another Reliving the War legend. Starrcade does not come recommended, but for the Jeff Jarrett naysayers, this event might change your mind. Do check out the ladder match if you get the chance, and yep, that's it. Thanks for watching folks, I hope you enjoyed this video, and please take care.
Goodbye.